Many thanks for staying with us and welcome back to the morning show here on the Rise News. It's time now to review headlines of today's newspapers. Steve, what have you got for us?
Yes, we start with this day, Abby. Interesting stories here, and the key one is what we've been talking about, the headline story. IPOB, Amotekun, Ebubeagu may spark election violence, U.S. Democracy Institute alert. And if you look at the quote that the editor put on the cover, it says if the election is perceived to be illegitimate, IPOB and ESN could gain significant traction and potentially become directly involved in post-election violence. The proliferation of informal security elements such as Amotekun in the southwest and Ebubeagu in the southeast further complicates security and increases opportunities for election violence. That's, concerning, but This is not the first time that we'll hear something like this. Fitch, in his own poll, where it said, which was what I mentioned to Dr. Naji, a few moments ago, Fitch said that it's likely that the candidate of the APC might win, as at the time that poll was conducted, and that that might lead to some election violence if the supporters of Mr. Peter Obi of Labour Party think that the election, was rigged or didn't go well or was, illegitimate. Right. So these two U.S. Democracy Institutes are basically queuing behind that sort of thinking with the evidence that if you have IPOB in the southeast, Amotekun in the southwest, Ebubeagu in the southeast too, and fairly fully armed, there might be some kind of consequences, if the election is perceived to be somehow. And if you take a look at the story on top of the masthead, military security agencies not under pressure to score to 2023 elections, which is on page 5 of the same this day. That's a worry being, let's say it's an assurance from the Chief of Defense Staff, saying that there's a lot of pressure from them, but that they will not cave in. A lot of pressure from politicians, from political parties, either looking for favors, win the election towards us, or not even having the election at all. Because what you can't take out of the table, no matter how unpalatable, it might sound, is the muted call for a kind of interim arrangement. And some people are saying that, are we sure that INEC is fully ready, that INEC will be in total control of the elections in February, March, or that Nigeria, if we continue with the flawed 1979 constitution, we will achieve the sort of country that we want. And therefore, maybe an interim arrangement that gives, about 2 years for, a re-engineering of the old policy, change the constitution, take the desperate people out of, the equation.
Well, legitimate concerns there.
Absolutely. And it's just it's not nobodies that are saying these things, Eminent Nigerians are expressing worry. So let's believe the Chief of Army Staff, or Chief of Defense Staff saying that we won't cave under pressure, even though that the pressure is enormous. A few other stories. FG targets additional 30,000 megawatts of electricity by guess when? 2030. We're in 2022. The government ends next year. If we are targeting 30,000 megawatts by 2030, that will be the tail end of the second term of whoever is coming in. Right. If that person gets, to 2 terms. I mean,
the target, isn't it?
I don't get the point. This is not where we should be as a country. Okay. This is what infuriates people. Yeah. You may not like Mr. Peter Obi for many things, but the things he says about fixing power in Nigeria and using the Egyptian example is very germane. They didn't create any miracle. They were just truthful, knew what they wanted, and they eliminated vested interest. And then go for it. Can we afford it? We were able to afford $16 billion under Obasanjo. Who says we can't afford it now? But then will they deliver? Will the money not be stolen? Will we have a situation where those who are into
alternative power, generator business, will now come to those are
an
issues.
Unrealistic projection.
That we have to deal with. Well,
So many
another
questions.
story before we pick another paper. Emefiele to banks, prefer solution to FX shortage, challenges them to meet forex needs of customers without relying on government. I think the CBN is still, he's dancing around, with all this fiscal intervention that is doing. We're not out of the redesigning of the naira and what is coming.
We're still trying to digest that.
Exactly, and we're into the 20 naira a day withdrawal and stuff. Now he's asking the banks,
20,000.
look for the dollars. Look for the dollars, find a way to sort it.
Why, in your opinion, is all of this happening? Timing is also crucial here.
The election is a factor.
Yes.
They don't want
a very important factor.
Yeah, they don't want too much cash going around so that people, politicians especially, which is why you find the House of Reps and all those, chaps, coming up against it. But for this FX shortage, it could be part of it. We'll recall what happened during the primaries and how dollar became, very scarce.
Yeah.
It still boils down to the elections. If people can keep naira because it has been redesigned and you can withdraw up to a certain amount, will they switch to dollar or something like that? But it's beyond that. The CBN governor will need to do a lot more in terms of the sort of monetary policies that is dealing with, and how you solve the FX shortage will be key to that. How will you solve it? How will you be able to solve it when you are still having the parallel market and different exchange? It's not going to work.
There's got to be such a cohesion between the fiscal and monetary aspects of those functions need to marry.
You're just creating billionaires overnight. People buying at 400 and something at the banks and selling at 700 plus, elsewhere. You've got to deal with that. It doesn't have to be to float the naira alone as a solution, but in dealing with it, it is the CBN first before the banks can start looking for naira. Can we look at the Tribune
let's
very
we don't
quickly?
have a lot of time, but let's look very quickly. Saturday Tribune, we have here, Atiku attacks Tinubu APC over call to snatch power. We've got the writers there say they are enemies of democracy, masked as progressives. PDP leaders lack mental capacity to evaluate Tinubu, and that's according to the APC.
What PDP is saying here is germane, because it came off part of what the candidate of the APC did in London. After it was like a three-part thing. After the Chatham House,
there was
encounter, and then there was the BBC interview, and then there was a meeting with APC members in London, where Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, spoke extempore and mentioned the fact that power is not served a la carte, that you have to fight for it, you have to snatch it, you have to take it anyhow if you want it desperately, which will be part of the worries that his handlers normally have, that when you let him loose and speak extempore,
because could that just be a figure of speech,
it
not
could,
necessarily,
absolutely, that's what I'm saying.
But of course, we take
PDP
that.
And the critics, and the obedience are taking it literally to say that, listen, look at what he's saying, that he wants to snatch power, he wants to take it by force, he wants to use by all means possible, Is that what Asiwaju meant when he said that? They are engaging with
Hopefully
him.
not.
We'll have to. Hopefully not. Especially when you say that when you're wrestling with a pig, that you must be ready to
get dirty. So many,
so many things.
So many
but then
things to explore.
Some people are already writing theses about, Asiwaju saying certain things and then not meaning it.
Well, his communications team have got a lot of work on their hands, we've got to say that.
It's communications. All right, then. That brings us to the end of the morning show today. Thank you for watching, and do stay safe. I'm Steve Ayori.
And I am Abby Owolawi. From our entire team here in Lagos, Nigeria, enjoy the rest of your morning and, of course, the rest of your day. Goodbye.